Jeremiah has had a rough take of it. He's survived assassination attempts and people just generally hating him by the thousands. And he finds himself now in a pit, right? A literal pit in the ground where there's like grossness coming down. And he makes his way out of the pit just to be put in prison, because what Jeremiah's job is to prophesy about the fall of Jerusalem and Judah and the taking to Babylon. And that's not a popular idea, because he calls for the people to repent against their ways. And what were they doing, right? What was God saying to Jeremiah to tell them? Well, he says their wives were lighting incense to other gods, right? They were worshiping. They were not going to the one true God, which is like pretty big commandment, right? You can't have other things in your life. The difference with Christianity and many other religions is it's one way, one path, one answer. Other faiths often say there's some pieces there. So that was a problem. And Jeremiah laid it out for them completely. And you know what they did? They didn't listen. It literally says, he tells them that God says to turn your ways, and they don't hearken unto him. And instead, they say, well, you know, we did this stuff back home and nothing happened, so nothing's going to happen now. And Jeremiah just like says, no. You know, the behavior was so bad back there, but God it wasn't even on his mind, because he thought they'll straighten out, they'll come back, right? But you didn't. And so because of that, God moves his hand, and God knows what we're going to do. So I'm not saying he didn't know what would happen, but that doesn't mean that just because a parent knows what their child's going to do, that they don't still be like, oh, why are you doing that? Right? So ultimately, because the people don't listen to Jeremiah, the cities start to fall. You start to see like Moab go down, right? And then what ultimately happens is Babylon comes in. Nebuchadnezzar continues to take more and more from the kings of Jerusalem and of Judah, and he starts to take the people. And all of this goes back to Isaiah, where Isaiah asked King Hezekiah why he was showing the princes of Babylon all that he had, all of the riches in his house. And he told him, you're going to be taken away to Babylon. So from Isaiah now to Jeremiah, Jeremiah is telling us what is going to happen. And then, right at the end of that, when we know that Jeremiah has done his job talking about Babylon taking over, Jeremiah has a message for Babylon. And that's that they're also going to fall. Now, this fall will happen years from now, right? We've got a few more prophets to work out. We've got lots more actions to happen. But for sure, Nebuchadnezzar is going to be in that story. Darius is going to be in that story. And Nebuchadnezzar's son, Belshazzar, is going to be in that story. And all of that will happen. So Jeremiah says all that, and he says what's going to happen, but as we know, they don't always listen to the prophets, right? The witnesses of God who say what God is doing. They aren't listening to him. So we're going to continue on, right? And what happens next is that as Jeremiah has done such a great job of bringing us from Jerusalem and Judah to Babylon, next comes up two great prophets, Ezekiel and Daniel. And Daniel's going to serve up in the kingdom. He serves the royals. He's what we would call a kingdom prophet, meaning that he does various things there. And we'll get to Daniel. We've talked about him before, right? But up next, what I want to talk about is my dear friend Ezekiel and what he did as a prophet that was in captivity in Babylon. And that really goes to show us how it's all one story. So join me next week for Chatting at Cheesman as we hang out with Ezekiel.